Hello and welcome to my show Indus Cuisine, and I'm your chef Basim Akhund. We're back with a new episode from the heart of Pakistan. Today's recipe is very interesting and it has been inspired by the Afghani culture. We're making the recipe which is known as Aush. You've heard it right, Aush means basically noodle soup, and today the noodles we'll be using are dried noodles, but if you want to make fresh noodles at home, that's one thing you could do, but you'll have to research about that. Back in the day when people did not have dried products like noodles or spaghetti, people used to use egg yolk, some flour, some oil and a little bit of sugar, mix it up, and then they used to roll out fresh noodles at home. So what are the ingredients of this recipe? Today's recipe is basically a noodle soup which has a lot of meat, and I'll be serving around 4 to 5 people with all these ingredients. What other ingredients you would require? You need around 500 grams of beef, then you need some salt to taste, you need some garam masala, you need some cumin powder, you need some chili flakes, chili powder, garlic, some oil to saute the meat, then you need some cream which will go towards the end, then you need 2 things more. You need chickpeas and you need red kidney beans which should be boiled already. If you do not want to boil them, you can also use the canned ones which are available in the market. Then you need around 5 to 6 tomatoes, you need some dried pasta, you can use some fettuccine or you can use the thick one over here or the spaghetti also, and if you want to use some other form of pasta or the other shape of pasta, you could do that also. Then you need some spinach and around 3 onions which we shall be using in this recipe. This recipe is very easy. It will be made in 3 different parts. The first part would be we'll be sauteing the beef and then we shall tell you what to do next. What do you need for that? You need a fresh pan and you need to bring it to heat. The heat needs to be high and we shall just add a little bit of oil to this and then we'll cook it. You could say around just a tablespoon. Why? Because I want to cook the meat without anything else. Okay, so now what you need to do is you need to grill the tomatoes on open flame. There are 2 ways of doing this. Either you add it in hot boiling water or you do it on the open flame. In Pakistan, you usually do it on the open flame. There are 2 reasons behind that. The first reason is that it gives it a nice char flavor. The second reason is that the tomato skin, when it comes off, the flavor of the heat also goes into the pulp till the center. Okay, as you can see, I've done all of the other ones. They're already peeled. I was just doing one in front of you. Why? Because it would have taken a lot of time. So just take the skin off slowly like this. And as you can see, I've just grilled it on open flame. That's about it. This is done. Just be very careful that you don't burn yourself. And now we shall start chopping these tomatoes. These tomatoes must be chopped into 4 halves, you could say. So I'll just take a paring knife. I'll move the pasta bowl over here. Just take the eye of the tomato off. Place them over here like this, slowly and gradually. And then we'll cut it into 4 halves and then transfer it into the wok, but towards the later stage, not right now. So slowly and gradually, take the other tomato off on the side. Now just cut it like this. The tomatoes need to be nice, red, beefy. Remember that. And we're almost done. Okay, now the next step is what you need to do is you need to start preparing the meat. For that, you need to first clean your hands and transfer all these tomatoes into a separate bowl. So what I'll do is I'll pick up a fresh bowl and I'll keep it over here. We'll transfer all the tomatoes with a knife and then we shall saute them later on. First, what we need to do is we need to just saute the beef just for a bit. The pan is hot. Add around just a tablespoon of oil, not too much. Why? Because the meat has fat and we shall utilize that. Okay, this is done. The pan is already hot. Take the beef, take the cling wrap off and transfer all of this over here. So once you've added the beef, just start breaking it down like this and start mixing it. Mix it up. And now give it a lid for just 2 minutes. On the other hand, what you need is, you need some garlic, which we'll finely chop. But for that, first you need to put it on the board, press it like this. And now finely chop it. You want to finely chop it, not grate it, because I want the texture of the garlic in the recipe. Please remember that. Scoop it up and keep going. Keep an eye on the beef also. You don't want to cook it completely. What you have to do is, I'll let you know, but step by step. Why? Because we're making a nice soup. Aush is a soup which is made in Pakistan and which is enjoyed usually in the Gilgit-Baltistan area. This is done. Now you need to break it down again. And this is almost done. As I told you, this beef is not completely cooked, so we shall rest it on the side in a bowl. You will be using the same pan because this pan has the flavor you will be utilizing for the onions. So now firstly what you'll do is, you'll add the finely chopped garlic. Reduce the heat over here just a bit and mix this. This is done. Add just a pinch of salt so that the garlic starts sweating, and add the remaining oil over here. This is done. Now what we'll do is, we'll reduce the heat. So as you can see, the garlic is on heat. Now what I'll do is, I'll put it on pilot and keep this over here. So now the next step is, you need the onions. So we'll finely slice these as close as you can go. Turn around. This is done. Keep it close and finely slice it. This is done. We'll be using around 2 onions today. Turn around, and here we go. So quickly we shall add this to the oil where we have the garlic. Transfer it here. Increase the heat again. You can see the garlic is nicely light brown. That's the texture we require for this. Pick this up and transfer it here. Now when you add the onions, the temperature of the oil will eventually go down. Why? Because these onions are cold. Now mix it up. You want to add around another pinch of salt. Mix it up again. Take a spatula and start mixing. You can see the onions are falling apart. They're not sticking with each other anymore, and that is what you need. Okay. On the other hand, what we'll do is, we'll take a wok, we'll add water in it, and we'll bring it to boil. So the water's over here. This is for the pasta. Give it a lid, it will boil quicker. This is done. Okay. On the other hand, now what you need is, you need to start adding a few spices. First what we'll do is, we'll add some red chili flakes. We'll add some red chili powder. And then this goes on the side. Start mixing it. and this is done. Okay, now the next step is give this a lid, reduce the heat and let it cook for a minute and a half. Till the time that is cooking, what we'll do is we'll take the tomatoes. Because I want it to cook a little faster, what I'll do now is I'll just roughly pass the knife through this. Now the reason of roughly passing the knife through this is what will happen eventually is they will cook quicker on high heat. I want this char color to come on this, and then eventually we'll add it to the food processor. That's why you can just pass your knife roughly through it. Some things do not need precision. I'm teaching you the way this is done in the mountains in Gilgit-Baltistan because this recipe has been really enjoyed over there after it was taken by the Afghan culture. Okay, this is done. Now transfer all the tomatoes over here. For that, what we'll do is we'll transfer it to the bowl first. What will happen with that is we can add them in one go. Okay, increase the heat to full. Add the tomatoes. Cook them on extreme high heat. Add another pinch of salt. Why? Because you want the tomatoes to start sweating also. Okay, mix it up. You want them to be covered in the oil. And now give this a lid. Now we'll cook these tomatoes for at least 5 minutes on high heat, but every 30 seconds you'll take the lid off and mix it up. Until the time this cooks, we'll go for a short break. I'll come after the break and I'll let you know what to do next. There's a lot of work to be done. Keep watching Indus Cuisine. Welcome back. You're watching Indus Cuisine and I'm your chef Basim Akhund. During the break, I was just waiting for you lovely people, and on the other hand, I had some water on heat which is actually coming to boil. That's for the pasta. And on the other hand, I had these tomatoes which were cooking over here. If you can see, the tomatoes are nicely cooked. Now what you need to do is transfer it over here. So what I'll do is I'll pick the jug today for a change. I'll keep it over here in front of you and I'll start transferring all of this into the jug. What you need to do is you need to convert this into a nice paste. You've seen other spices I have to use right now, which I haven't still. The beef mince is just cooked around 40%. We still need to cook it. I just cooked it in the pan so that I can get some beef fat over here and I can add some heat to the cold meat. So now all of these things are in the jug. Shut it up and now take it over here and convert it into a nice fine paste. As you can see, this is done. We do not need this pan anymore, so what I'll do is I'll shift this over here. On the other hand, as you can see, the water is at boil. What we'll do is we'll add just around half a teaspoon of salt, and now we'll pick the pasta up and toss it in. So as you can see, they come in balls like this. Just add them and cook them for 7 minutes. That's about it. Do not put too much, but if you have some space, you can just add them accordingly. Okay, this is done. What I'll do now is I'll give it a lid first. When I give it a lid, the heat shall be controlled inside, the evaporation shall be controlled, and the pasta will cook evenly. Okay, this is done. Now what do you need? You need a pressure cooker. The pressure cooker is over here. I'll pick it up. I'll keep it over here. I'll increase the heat to full, and now I'll start cooking the recipe more. Okay, firstly what you'll do is you do not have to add water into it. You shall just pick up this and transfer it into this. You can see the water has come to boil. Now take the lid off and just keep it like this so that the heat is also maintained inside, and on the other hand the evaporation is also controlled and the water doesn't come out. Okay, transfer it over here. Now you need some water for this recipe, around 1 cup you could say. So I'll bring some water from the back, but reduce the heat first. Why? Because otherwise this paste will start jumping out. side. I'll add around a cup and a half. Mix this because there's a lot over here and transfer it over here. Now you might be thinking, why is he doing this? The reason behind that is we need to cook the meat. So I'll add the meat and we'll cook the meat for just 5 minutes in the pressure cooker. What will happen is when I cook the meat in the broth, it will get really soft and really smooth, you could say, in texture. So now give it a lid and increase the heat to full. So now once the whistle starts blowing, that's the time you'll start counting that the recipe is almost done. On the other hand, the pasta is cooking. Remember one thing, always just move it a bit like this so that it doesn't stick to each other. So I've just done this for you in front of you. And now we'll let the pasta cook for another 6 minutes and we'll let this cook for at least 5 minutes. Until then this is cooking, what I'll do is I'll clean up and then I'll show you what to do next. So as you can see, the tomato sauce was done from the pressure cooker. What I did was, after giving it 5 to 6 minutes, I just took it off and I kept it over here. So now what I'll do is I'll give it a lid. Secondly, the pasta was done. I'll transfer it to a fresh bowl and I'll add some cold water on top so that the cooking of this pasta stops. I'll just mix it up a bit and I'll rest it over here in front of you. We do not need this anymore. We'll keep it on the side. I'll just pick up a tissue paper and then I'll start wiping the board clean. Okay, now as you can see, everything is almost done. Now the next part is we need to continue with the recipe. Okay, increase the heat, transfer this over here, and first what we'll do is we'll add some herbs. Okay, as you can see, it's bubbling up. So what you need to do is you need to keep mixing it. The beef is completely cooked. It's nice, soft and tender. That's what you needed. If you would have cooked the beef on high heat in oil, the beef would have gotten a little tough and the texture would have changed a bit. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll put the heat on medium and just keep an eye. If you think that everything's jumping out, you can reduce the heat more, even further, but do not keep the heat too high. Okay, first what we'll do is we'll add some cumin powder and then we'll add a little bit of garam masala. This is too much. We just need a little bit. I've just kept some extra on the side for later on. Mix it up. Now, as you can see, it's a recipe which is very easy and it's not very complicated. This is done. It smells beautiful. We need to cook the spices for at least a minute. As you can see, it's cooking, but we will not increase the heat too much, because if you increase the heat too much, what will happen is the sauce will start bubbling out. It will start jumping. Why? There's a reason. Because if you boil water, what happens is the consistency is a bit flowy. When the water is flowy, the consistency is loose, the water doesn't jump out. But because the sauce is thick, it's really fine because of this nice blender. What happens is when you cook it on high heat, it starts jumping out and it actually makes everything around you unclean. Okay, now what you need to do is you need to pick some mint leaves. Now, as you can see, there are two forms of mint leaves. The first one is, these are the small ones. So like you can call them like the little version or the baby version of the mint leaves. If you find the bigger ones, for that what you need to do is you need to take the stem out. For this, you can cut around the stem because the stem is very soft. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll take the first bunch, I'll just turn it around like this and I'll cut it downwards. What will happen is the thick stems are in my hand and I'll throw it on the side. Likewise, I shall just turn it around and cut around the stems. But for this, what you need to do is you need to really finely chop it. And as I've written it, we need finely chopped mint leaves, around 2 tablespoons. Okay, now I'll just wrap it up in a bunch like this. I'll start finely chopping it. This needs to be really fine so that the flavor of this recipe enhances, it opens up, remember that. On the other hand, we need to add some spinach also, and that spinach will be added later, not right now. So we shall reserve a little bit of the mint leaves for later, and little bit we'll be adding to the recipe right now so that the sauce gets a nice minty flavor which will be properly and evenly infused. This is done. Just pick it up and toss it in. We'll add half of it right now, and the rest we'll add later. For that, what I'll do is I'll pick up the same bowl and I'll transfer it into it. So I've just transferred all the mint leaves into this. I've kept it over here. Now what I'll do is I'll clean up the board first and then I'll continue. So now what I'm doing is I'm remixing the sook. Sook is the part of the gravy that sticks to the pan, and that's the flavor you need to reintegrate. The flavor is completely balanced well, the board is clean over here, and now we shall commence with the recipe. What I'll do for this recipe is I shall dish this recipe out for just 2 people. But there is some more work left right now, so what we'll do is we'll pick up some spinach and now we shall finely chop it. Okay, so what I'll do is I shall just turn it around. I shall take the stems out from here and I shall put it on the side. Okay, now just go really close and really fine. This is done. Now turn it around and pass your knife really well. The spinach is done. Pick it up and transfer it to the sauce. Now the spinach will just take around a minute to cook. In Pakistan, they usually say you should cook the spinach for at least 20 minutes or 15 minutes, but that's the old rule. Scientifically, if you see that people just add the spinach in hot water, they cook it and then they just take it out. That's all you need to do. You do not need to overcook the spinach. The more you overcook it, the more it will lose its texture. So now the spinach is in, we'll increase the heat and we'll keep mixing it so that it doesn't start jumping out. Okay, on the other hand, now what you need is you need to add all the remaining ingredients. What I'll do is I shall add the red beans and I'll add the chickpeas also. It has come to boil. Now reduce the heat a bit more. You need to keep controlling the flame so that you go a long way. We'll add the red beans now, and now we shall add the chickpeas. We've added all the goodness. As you can see, this recipe is very famous throughout Pakistan. Why? Because it's full of energy. This is almost done. Now what I'll do is I shall cook this for another 5 minutes, but with giving it a lid. You need to give it a lid. This recipe can also be enjoyed, remember that, with rice. You do not just need to have it with pasta or spaghetti. People can use rice with this also. This is done. Now I shall give it a lid. Increase the heat to full. Once it comes to boil, I'll reduce the heat a little bit more. You need to add the pasta in this. I'll be adding all of it so that I can serve at least 2 people in front of you. Do not add the water, the one I added at the bottom. You just need to add the pasta, that's about it. Mix it up slowly. Preferably fold it on high heat. And now we shall start dishing it out. So as you can see, today's recipe is ready. The first thing was a single serving. I just added like a dollop of cream on top, and it's like nice filled with beans, beef, spaghetti, and you'll love this recipe if you make it at home. And the other one is a serving for 2 people. Now either the first one is in which I've added less of the pasta and more of the gravy. The other one is more of the pasta and less of the gravy. So the way you want to serve it, it's on you completely, the way you want to enjoy it. So I'll see you in another episode of Indus Cuisine. Take care of yourself. I'll meet you soon. Bye-bye.